So today we will continue with our lecture on energy methods. This is the second part of the lecture. So today what we are going to do is show you how to solve such problems. Okay. So this slide, let me present, okay, from the downloaded one. So these are some of the problems in stress and deformation analysis. The types of problems are written here. So what is the technique of solution? We will assume an approximate displacement field related to this particular problem. Okay. So this displacement field depends on the geometry, on the loading, on the boundary conditions, etc., etc. And then we will make an assumption of that displacement field, okay, which we have discussed earlier. What are the nature of those functions, okay, this type of functions, eigenfunctions, how to select these functions, okay, these things we have discussed. Now one thing we have discussed about linear independence, that part is there, but one additional part is there. The thing is, the functions, okay, they need to, or rather when we are talking about selection of these functions, okay. So first thing is satisfaction of boundary condition, that part is there. The second part is generation of orthogonal set, that is also we have discussed. And there is one additional requirement, that is these functions, they must satisfy the governing differential equation also. This is the statement. So these are assumed functions, okay. These functions we are selecting to satisfy the boundary conditions, okay, as well as it must satisfy the governing differential equation. So we will find out these governing differential equations. So these differential equations, they come from the formulation of the problem, okay, and this part, this assumption is basically associated with the solution part of the problem, right? Yes. So to solve or to make an approximate solution, we are assuming these functions which comes from an infinite set. Yes. The generation principle also we have discussed. So one additional feature is that the functions must satisfy the governing differential equation. At least they must be sufficiently differentiable as required by the governing differential equation. What does it mean? Say for a beam problem, we will see afterwards that we require fourth derivative of the deflection field, okay. So in such cases, the function must be such that its fourth derivative exists as such, okay. So this is one additional requirement, okay. So this much is fine. Now what next? What we are doing now? The next part is that the assumed function, which is basically a series sum, right? Yes. So that series sum will substitute in the governing differential equation. Let us see how this is done. So the problem formulation part we have already discussed, yes, right? That part you know. And then when we have a governing equation, what is the form of that governing equation? We had 15 unknowns, 15 equations, and ultimately we have reduced it into 3 equations involving 3 unknowns, right? The displacement field basically. And then there is some loading, Loading means corresponding to this problem we have some loading somewhere. Okay. If it is a column problem, it is axial loading. Beam problem, it is transverse loading. Okay. It is a bar problem. Okay. It's a different type of axial loading. Okay. So the phenomena is different, although loading is axial. The buckling problem and this bar problem, they are different in nature. Their physics is different. So that much we will see. So that part of loading, it will come in the governing differential equation. So what is this equation? This is the governing differential equation which we are forming from our knowledge on linear elasticity, from our knowledge on analysis of stress, analysis of strain, material properties, stress-strain relations. Okay, fine. Now you see this particular equation, this need to be satisfied at each point of the body. So they must be satisfied at each material point. Okay. So that satisfaction of the equation at each material point is quite difficult. This is a very strong requirement. Okay. So now what we can do, instead of satisfying the equation for each point, let us do one thing. Let us take or find out what is the outcome of this equation when we are using an approximate displacement field. You see, if this equation is 0, this particular field for displacement is exact solution. But whatever we did earlier, it is basically an approximation. So when it is an approximation, we know that it is not an exact solution of the problem. So if it is an exact, not an exact solution, you see there is a tilde. Okay, so that means this is approximate. Okay, so here we don't have exact 0 now. If we substitute this exact displacement field with this approximate displacement field, there would be some residual.
Yes.
So this would be the thing.
Yes, sir.
So this is known as residual. Okay. And this residual will be there at each material point.
Yes.
In the body itself, if we have a body like this, at each point we have some residual.
Yes.
So now what we are doing here, you see, this is the residual, right? Now if we integrate this residual over the entire volume and make it 0, this becomes much easier.
Yes, sir.
This is the idea. Okay, you clear?
Yes.
And whatever is written here, this is nothing but this residual which is not 0 at a particular material point. But this ensures that overall this is 0. Okay, so this is the idea. Understand? This is what we are going to do, and this R is known as residual. That much you know. Okay. So this is what is written here. Go through this thing. Okay, this is what we are going to do now. Okay, this thing we have discussed. I am not mentioning that. So to start with, let us take up a stability problem first. Okay, and here we will make some solution through hand calculation. Okay, and we will see how this leads to the generation of a computer code. Okay, and that part we will then implement for this bar problem. Okay, and beam problem we won't discuss now. This we will discuss in a subsequent course when we will be discussing beam theory. Now let us go to this stability problem, and in your undergraduate studies you have solved this problem, okay, where an analytical solution is available, right? You see this thing. You see, this is known as column stability problem, right?
Yes.
This analytical solution is available in Timoshenko's Strength of Materials book, or in any other book you will find this solution. There is a slender column, there is short column, etc., etc. Usually the slenderness ratio, it is defined by L by K. L is length and K is this root over R. It is called, what it is called?
Radius of gyration.
Radius of gyration. Right.
This is L is the effective length.
L is effective length, right? Depending on the boundary condition, we take L. Okay. So this theory part you know, right?
Yes, sir.
Now you see there is one question which arises. The thing is, say if this column is straight enough, right? It is a straight column, and if we apply a load which is axial, okay, then why this buckling will occur? You know, buckling means the failure due to this axial loading even when the induced stress is much less than the compressive allowable strength. So here this thing comes from this idea of stability. Okay. So what we do to test the stability, what we do, say for example, we have a sphere, okay, at this 3 particular point in a path. We have such a cup form, or we have such a cusp form, and somewhere we have such a form. Okay. So to test stability, what we do? We give a small perturbation to it. That means we displace. We displace this sphere and we see what is the resulting effect. If the sphere comes back to its initial position, we say it is stable. And if it changes its position, but never come back to the original position, or there is no failure also, it takes up the new position, then we say it's a neutral equilibrium. Okay. And also in such a case, this is a neutral equilibrium in the small, and in the large, if that displacement is quite large, it will again become unstable. So this part is metastable also, that is there, and this is purely unstable. So with this idea, what we are doing here, say this straight column is given a perturbation. Is it clear? So this is why in stability problem, first we give a perturbation. Okay. So that question comes naturally if there is an axial loading and there is a straight column, why this deflection is coming. It is not that physical deflection which is coming. You must not think it that way. The thing is, this is an intentional deflection which we are giving to test stability. This is clear. So then what will happen due to this particular disturbance, or say intentional deflection which we have given, there will be some moment, and then we will see the system for this induced moment. To understand why this moment is coming, because at this point the direction of line of action of P is here, and at this point the line of action of force P has a eccentricity y. So P into y is our moment, and m by ei is d2y dx. Do you know that Euler-Bernoulli beam equation? Right? From there we get this particular equation, substitute for m here, we get such an equation, and we solve for this, and this solution again depends on the boundary condition of the column. So here y is the deflection field for this column, right? So then you know for different boundary conditions, okay, how we get a solution for that. And what is done here, this particular equation is now given in this form, which you can always put it in that form, but this form also comes from other aspect. We will see to it.
So after
So-
differentiating
Two times it will come.
Yes.
That is there. So this is a general form of the solution, right? For this fourth order differential equation, this is the general solution, and this ABCD are the constants which depends on the boundary condition. So here solution for hinged end is shown. This part you know, this is known as Euler-Buckley load, right?
Yes.
For hinged end. And for other type of boundary condition, this is a fixed and free. Okay, this is how we solve for the constant ABCD. ABCD are the constant of this general solution. Then we also get the critical load for this particular boundary condition, fixed free.
fixed free.
This is a fixed free. Boundary conditions are different. Okay. So, and in addition, you see the solution of this problem don't have a unique value. What is the critical load here? The n in this particular solution can take integer values like 1, 2, 3, etc. Okay. So these things are the corresponding deflection shape. So that means it is a plot of y for different values of this n. Okay, n is 1, we are getting a half sine wave, right? If n is 2, we get a full sine wave with a node in between the two endpoints. Then if n is 3, we have two node points. Okay, so they are known as first, second, and third modes of Buckley. And when we will go into vibration problem, we will see that these mode shapes are also identical. This is simply supported one. These mode shapes are also identical with vibration mode shapes. Oh, whatever, that is not part of our discussion here. Okay, this is known. For a clamped free, these are the mode shapes. See? This is the first one, second one, third one, etc. And also you note, in this connection you note, what are the boundary conditions. The boundaries are, this end is fixed, okay, and the other end is free. So if this is fixed, this means the deflection and the slope at this point is 0. Okay. So at x equal to 0, deflection 0, slope 0. And if this is free, other end is free, what does it mean? The moment is 0 and the shear force is also 0. Okay. So these two at x equal to L, moment and shear force are 0. So these four conditions gives us the solution for A, B, C and D. That is what is used in the analysis. So this is analytical solution of the problem. Is known, but we will make an approximate solution of this problem. Let us go back to the buckling problem first. Okay. So this is our problem, right? So to find it out, to solve for this particular problem, we are considering the case of a cantilever column. That means one end is clamped, other end is free. So the boundary conditions are shown here. At fixed end, deflection 0, slope 0, and at the free end, moment is 0, and you know moment is m by ei is d2y dx2. So d2y dx2 means second derivative of y. That is also 0. Whatever. But what we are doing here, we have given a perturbation to the straight column. and that perturbation is say Py, y is the deflection of this free egg.
Yes.
So what is the moment now at this point? M is again P into that y, right? And due to that deflection, let us take this general case, right? We have a loading P, we have some deflection here. The deflection is indicated by W. Deflection field is W. So at location X, we have a deflection W at X. So now, what is the moment, elemental moment here? We know what is that, as well as we know what is the stress and strain at this point, which is coming from that moment.
Yes.
Okay, so if we calculate energy stored in this column, a general term is beam column, because in such a system if there is some transverse loading, it becomes a case of beam column. Now, that is not considered here. So that stress and strain will give rise to this strain energy, that much you know.
Yes.
And you observe here what is the nature of stress. Due to bending, we have a bending stress which is in the direction of the axis of the beam, right?
Yes.
It's a axial
bending.
stress. It is an axial stress. So associated with that, we have an axial strain also. So we have only considered sigma x and epsilon x, because in other direction those are 0, so it is not considered here. Okay, and then what is this sigma? This is E into epsilon, that is also known to you. So this is E by 2 epsilon x, or the strain on this squared over, this is a volume integral, right?
Yes.
And what is the volume for a column? It's area into length. Okay. So for an element of this particular column, the elemental volume is dA into dx. Okay. So here what we are doing, as volume is expressed as a product of area and the length, the limit of integration over the volume is now first an integration over area and then an integration over length. Now we substitute for this strain, axial strain, which comes from this Euler-Bernoulli beam equation. Know this form, right?
Yes, sir.
What does it mean? Sigma by E is equal to y by r. What is 1 by r? 1 by r is the curvature, r is radius of curvature at this point, and an approximate equation of the curvature is d2y dx2 divided by something is there in the numerator, which is considered equal to 1 for small deflection. Okay. So this becomes y into d2w dx2 is the same derivative. So sigma by E is epsilon, epsilon is y into d2w dx2. Okay, that is why this epsilon x is now y square into d2w dx2 whole square, right? This is what is substituted.
Yes, sir.
Now if we consider this part, y square dA, area integral of that, what it is?
Area moment of inertia.
Area moment of inertia, y square dA. Now if the cross section is varying, this area moment of inertia is also varying, it becomes a function of x. It is possible, it is not that it's a case of constant one.
Y square to dA.
Okay, so that much you know.
Yes.
So that is also possible. So our ultimately this expression of strain energy becomes like this. If this is a constant cross section column, we take I as a constant, it becomes half EI and whatever is there within the integral. Clear? So for a constant cross section, this is the expression of our strain energy. Now we have to consider, in addition to the strain energy, the potential energy also. Where from potential energy will come? Work done due to this applied forces P. That will create some potential, or work done by the force P will be stored as a potential. And what is our statement of total potential? It is U plus V. Okay, right? Variation of pi is 0. Pi is total potential. You see the statement,
Yes, sir.
initial statement. What was that
I can
statement?
U plus V and D of pi equal to 0.
This is the thing.
Yes, sir.
This pi is total potential, which is U plus V. And what is this V? This is work done by the forces.
Body force and traction.
Right? This is clear. So this U part we have calculated.
Yes.
Now this V, it is basically the negative of the work done, so which is known as work function. Okay. So that work done in this particular case is the displacement, say, of this point of application of the load. Is clear? So how much is the displacement of this point? If we calculate the change in length of this column, this capital L is initial length, and say after this deflection there would be some change in length of this column.
Yes.
And if that changed length is capital S, okay, then that capital S minus capital L is the change in length, or we can say this is movement of this force P.
Yes, sir.
Now you see this capital S will come from the integration of this ds, is it not?
Yes.
Okay. Because over this element dx we have a deflection dw. Okay. Now this length along this arc, elemental arc length, we are considering as a straight line, which is ds.
Yes.
So what is this ds square? Pythagoras theorem, dx square. And you take a derivative on this with respect to x. This is what we are getting. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Cancel 2. 2 is there everywhere. Cancel 2. Divide it by dx once again. So we have a ds by dx, ds by dx. So ds by dx whole square.
Yes, sir.
Now 2 is cancelled, dx by dx is 1, and again dw by dx and dw by dx, the square. This is clear. So from here we can say this ds dx is root over of this part.
Yes, sir.
This is the root over of this. And then what is capital S? Integration of this ds over the entire length, 0 to capital L.
Yes, sir.
So it is basically integration of this quantity, or x, x from 0 to L. Okay. So what we do from here, we expand this as a binomial form. Okay. It becomes, that expansion becomes your 1 and then half
1
and
plus
some.
n x, sir.
That sort of thing we do, and we calculate this differential also. Okay.
Yes.
This is what it comes ultimately. So that much you have to calculate from there. Okay. And ultimately this change in length, which is capital S minus capital L, it comes out to be like this.
Yes.
So
Higher order term will be
we neglect higher order terms. So we return up to the first term only.
yes, sir.
Okay. Because afterwards this half into some more terms will be there.
Yes, sir. 1 plus n x plus n minus 1 by 2 into x square. 2
and then other terms will come which we are neglecting here. So for this first one is giving you the L. First this 1 will be there in the expansion, that is giving you L, and when we are computing S minus L, that gets cancelled. Have this term. Okay, this is clear. So this is V. V is negative of the work potential, V is minus of W. Okay, work done is P into delta L, V is minus of W. So what is total potential? Pi U plus V. This is U. This is U. This is V. This is V. Okay, this is the total potential, and what is governing differential equation now? Variation of this thing is 0.
Yes, sir.
So variation of this thing is 0. This is clear?
Yes.
And in that form, we'll substitute this W by our assumed series of unknown coefficients.
Yes.
That means we are forming this W, an approximate W, as a sum of Ci into phi I, or you can say that is basically that particular thing. Wx is sum of Ai phi I. A is unknown, f is some function satisfying boundary condition, etc., etc. Okay. So that is what we are going to substitute here now. Clear? Okay. So first assumption is this is one term. This y is a1 phi 1. Phi is x by L. Phi 1 is x by L.
X by whole square.
X by L whole square. Right. So this satisfy boundary condition at x equal to 0. It is clear. X equal to 0, y is 0, y prime, this is also 0. Right. Now from here, if this is y, this is first derivative and this is second derivative, right? So this is expression of u, this is expression of v. U and v means these are the things,
Yes, sir.
u and v. So if we substitute for y prime and y double prime here, this is our u,
Okay.
and this after evaluation, okay, this is the thing, this is a constant, so ultimately it becomes like this.
Yes.
And for v, this is our term, so we substitute for y prime is this thing, so substitute it here, we are getting this,
Okay.
then this part is constant and x square is x cube by 3, right?
Yes, sir.
X cube by yeah, x cube by 3. So from here this L cube by 3 will come. Okay, you understand. So this is u and this is v. This is what we are going to substitute in this equation. Variation of total potential is 0. Now, this variational operator, this means it's an arbitrary change, okay, a virtual change in our actual displacement field y. This y is exact solution, this is our approximate solution. So this variation here is a virtual displacement there,
Okay.
and that we are implementing through this unknown a1. There is a single unknown a1.
Yes.
So we can take that variation as the if this is 0, what we need to do? We need to take a derivative of this with respect to a1. and then we need to set it with equal to 0, and then we'll calculate what is the value of a1. Clear? So here we are taking this partial derivative of u plus v, which is now, this is u, this is v. So this is what we are getting. You see?
Yes, sir.
And from here, something is constant. Twice a1 by L square, whole square, that part is constant, right? And something will come out from this del del a1 of a1. Whatever it will become, this is a constant part. So remaining thing is this EIL minus of this 2, you multiply by 2, it is becoming PL cube by 3, this is equal to 0, right? This is what we are getting. And this thing we express like this. Okay?
Yes.
P is thrice EI and L cube gets cancelled, this is the thing. And now here we assume EI by L square as a factor which is known as a buckling factor, or we say this is a buckling coefficient. Okay? If this is buckling coefficient, PL square by EI, that value is coming as 3. So we will say buckling coefficient is 3. We had carried out analytical solution previously. There we have some buckling coefficient for clamped free beam. You can go back there and you can test what is the result there. That part is fine. So this is not the result. This is something different. We are not close to the answer required. So what is the way out? We have to add terms.
Yes, sir.
Because our function is not an eigenfunction.
Yes.
Even it's an admissible function, but not satisfying all the boundary conditions. Some boundary conditions it is satisfied. Actually, geometric boundary conditions it is satisfied.
Yes, sir.
The other ones are force boundary conditions. Okay, so again, with this, we add another term, a1 phi 1 plus a2 phi 2.
Yes.
This is the case. a1 phi 1 plus a2 phi 2. What is phi 2 here? X by L whole cube. So substitute, again the first derivative of this is, we know what it is,
Yes.
Second derivative is this, and then substitute them in our expression of u and v.
Yes.
This is what is the final expression for u, this is the final expression for v. Again we will form total potential u plus v, this, and minus is coming from there, from this v expression. So this is what we are getting. Rather, you see, if this is our u plus v, then how many unknowns are there? 2. And what will be this variation operator now? There are 2 unknowns, any of them can be given, or it's a virtual displacement. So a1 and a2, both are the variables there. We can vary them somewhat. So we have to take a derivative with respect to a1, another derivative with respect to a2. a1 and a2, these two are unknown coefficients, which are contributing in blending these functions to give rise to an approximate displacement field or deflection field. Clear? So this a1 and a2, they are arbitrary. We are taking derivatives with respect to a1, and there will be another derivative with respect to a2. This clear? So the first one, derivative with respect to a1, will give rise to this. Clear? See this. This is our u. This is our v. carry out derivative of this expression with respect to A1 and this one with respect to A1. Okay. Substitute it here. This is what we will get. The same operation with respect to unknown A2. This is what we will get. This is clear.
Yes.
Now you see what we are doing. From here we are taking, this is the general way. We will get a solution from here by forming a matrix equation from these two like this. That means first term, second term, third term, fourth term, we can consider it as a 2 by 2 matrix equation and the associated determinant there, okay, that is expanded. This is what we will get. But this is not the general way. The thing is, this particular equation we can express like this. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
E I by L cube, that part is constant. We are getting this 4, 6,
Six
and from there 6 and 12, right? Okay. 4, 6, right. And this P by L, here this 4 by 3, then minus, minus is already there, so this is 3 by 2, then again 3 by 2 and 9 by 5. Okay. So this is true.
Yes, sir.
So this is the general way of forming the matrix equation. Now note, if we had a third term, if we had A1 phi 1 plus A2 phi 2 plus A3 phi 3, then what would be the form of this equation? It would be a 3 by 3 coefficient matrix, then A1, A2, A3. Okay, that is the way of generating the our solution equation. We can go on adding terms, and this equation we can solve for one additional term.
Yes.
We can find out what are A1, A2, A3. So now comes those requirements. The matrix equation should be full rank, these things and that things. That is coming now, and that is why we have those requirements on phi y. They should be mutually orthogonal.
Yes.
Okay, this is clear. Now what happens if this is the form? This is known as our stiffness matrix, and this part is known as geometric stiffness matrix. Okay. So what happens from there? If we multiply, okay, this particular equation by the inverse of this matrix, okay, then what will happen? The inverse of this matrix is here,
Yes.
this into this matrix, and this is cross multiplied here.
Yes, sir.
So we are getting this term. This is nothing but our buckling coefficient, right? Lambda. Okay, and this is identity matrix I.
Yes. Yes.
So this is becoming lambda into, this is known as unknown vector, vector of unknown coefficients. Okay. So this vector of unknown coefficients will come. So this is the general form of our matrix equation. We can go on adding terms to it, so we can generate a computer code where we have to implement some logic to form this approximate functions, approximating functions, and these are the unknowns which we will find out from the solution of this matrix equation. Okay. Now what is the form of this matrix equation? This is the general form. This particular matrix is B inverse, means inverse of geometric stiffness matrix multiplied by the stiffness matrix into the vector of unknowns equal to some lambda into vector of unknowns. If that is our x, What does it mean? A matrix multiplied by a vector is becoming a scalar multiplied by the same vector. Then what is this lambda? This is called an eigenvalue, and this particular vector is known as eigenvector. You know this thing? So the problem is basically an eigenvalue analysis problem. Okay. So this is what we can do. So here, by manual calculation, this is sufficient to form the method. We won't go any further. But we can solve this 2 by 2 matrix, we can solve, and this is solved here. Okay. So from this solution, this is solved in a different way, right? This is straight away from this form. Okay, this is written as a 2 by 2 matrix, and then this is cross multiplied. Okay, this is cross multiplied, and this is equal to 0. If this is equal to, because this is the associated determinant of the matrix form. For this is the condition, non-existence of non-trivial.
Determinant of the matrix
Will be 0. So expand it, from where we get a quadratic equation for this lambda, which is basically this PL square by EI. Okay. So this equation is now expressed in that form. So you have to multiply all the terms by L cube by EI. We will get some lambda here. So, and that lambda part, it is a quadratic. Here we have a lambda, here we have a lambda. And solution of this quadratic equation, this will give two roots. The first one is 2.49, and then this is second one. Right? So these two are the buckling coefficients for first mode of buckling and second mode of buckling. And here we see that the value of buckling coefficient, it has changed. It has changed. Okay. Now this is the exact value we get from analytical solution. So now this is much closer. Previously the value was 3, their percentage was much more. And then if we go on adding terms, okay, the value will tend towards the exact value. So this error will further reduce. Okay. So this is the method. Okay. So now, this is a cantilever problem. First mode, second mode, and of course these are the mode shapes. Okay. You have to substitute these particular values of lambda, okay, in this equation, and if you make a plot of that, we'll get such mode shapes. Oh, actually these are some positions also. Is it like, is it that, or is it buckling coefficient value? Oh, I think these are buckling coefficient values, right? 1.57 is buckling coefficient value. That means these are the values of this lambda. Is it like that? For simply supported, this is pi by 2. 1.57 is pi by 2, right?
Yes.
No, might not be that thing. It can be like that, whatever. It is not mentioned as such. Whatever, there are, something is there. Additional feature is the location of these node points. That is also indicated. But that is not C. whatever we have to see the source of this equation, not written here. So with this idea, we are not going into dynamic problem. Let us form another problem for bar problem, for this bar problem, okay? And then we will make an computer code in MATLAB for this particular problem. Okay, let us analyze this bar problem now. So this is the problem. What is the problem? A taper bar is fixed at both ends. So end conditions as if they are clamped. Displacement 0 at these points, with various possibilities of axial loading. Where is the axial loading? Okay, there is capital F, there is smaller case f. So capital F is a point loading. At any point we can provide a load. Okay, as well as we can give a distributed loading over here. You know, it can be, so this Fx can be uniform loading, can be triangular loading. Okay, whatever form is possible we can give. So with various possibilities of axial loading as shown in figure. Assume all specifications of geometry. Here geometry means the length, the diameters, capital D and small d. They are the large diameter and small diameter. This is known. The loading, this magnitude of loads are given. Material properties are known. So these are the problem parameters. These are known as such.
So here the loading condition is constant throughout the beam, or does it have?
No. This F, this is a point loading. Okay, and this Fx is a function which is for distributed loading. If this Fx is constant, then the loading is uniform all through. If this Fx is equal to x, right? So this loading is 0 here, and then it becomes L at this point. It can be x square, it can be 1 minus x or 1 minus x square. It can be sin x. You can give any form of this distributed loading. Is clear?
Yes.
Okay. So this part is known, the problem parameter. Now what we have to do, determine displacement field of the bar, plot displacement, strain, stress field. Determine their value at midpoint. This is clear? This is the problem. Now, what is the associated strain energy and work done here? The strain energy will come from stress and strain. This we have seen, sigma is epsilon into E. So this is becoming E by 2 epsilon square, and simply for this problem epsilon is du dx. Okay, only. So this is our U. What is V? Here this loading is considered as distributed loading. Okay. Okay. At any point the loading is F, the displacement field is U. So F into U is that much of work done on an elemental strip dx, which is now integrated all through. So we are getting this as the loading. Also you note one thing, that the final form of U and V, they are expressed in normalized coordinate. You know what is meant by normalized coordinate? Okay, because for numerical implementation of the problem, okay, numerical integration scheme or differential, etc., those will be necessary, and for that purpose our domain is modified into a normalized domain 0 to 1. It is always possible if x is transformed through another variable xi, which is x by L. Okay. Then this d xi is basically something will be there. L x is equal to xi into L, so dx is equal to L into d xi.
Yes, sir.
And again there is a du d xi, where from we will get a 1 by L, its square will give 1 by L square, and a L here, so we will get 1 by L here. Okay. And from here in the expression of v we have dx, which is becoming L into d xi. So this is the expression of u and v. We put them in our governing differential equation or principle of minimum potential energy. This is what we are getting. Okay, this part, is it clear? This is the final form of the equation. Okay, so here you have to consider a displacement field u. This is our unknown, and then these parameters are known. Something is multiplied here, right? 0 to area is coming. I think this is coming. Area will come from.
I think this is missing.
This area is there, right? A into d xi. Okay. And from here.
D exactly same.
No, actually it is not that. The thing is, E by L, it is the L remains same, right? Oh, anyway, so this 2 will come, and when we will operate with delta, this form, what is the final form here? This is the form. Let us not consider this. You see, the derivation is carried out by another method as well. The result should be identical. This form and this form should be identical. And let us check this one. Here what is done is, instead of this energy, okay, a force balance is carried out. So here this is an alternative approach in which first the applied force over an element is carried out. So for elemental length dx, which is located at x, say, the area at x is ax, and at x plus dx, this is the area.
Yes.
Similarly, our stress and force, they are also like this. Okay, the change over these quantities. The loading is Fx, small fx. So this change in force, this dfx is fx into dx. That is also true. And you know, this fx is basically derivative of this dfx, dx is our fx. This is true. So now, if we equate the total forces, what are those things? Their change is dfx, this is dfx, and at this end the force is sigma x into ax or sigma a. On the other side, it is sigma plus d sigma into a plus dA.
Yes.
Okay. So from where what we are doing, the higher order term d sigma into dA is neglected. The sigma a and this sigma a, they are getting cancelled. Okay. We have a d sigma into a. Okay. And this d sigma is E into d of E into epsilon. Epsilon is du dx. Okay. And this d xi dx is equal to E into d2 by dx2. So d xi is this quantity into dx. This is okay. So that is what is written here as sigma into a. We are getting this term. Okay. Dx is taken as a constant all through. And another term is sigma into dA. Okay. So that sigma is E into du dx, and then dA is dA by dx into dx. So this is the form, right?
Yes.
Now you see this particular equation, this equal to 0, this is now we have not discussed about variational method, right? So the thing is, we have started from a force balance condition, and in that equation we have an equation which is given this variational form through another function. This is in general any function. If this is u, it can be v, w, anything. So here it is considered as identical with u, but to give a variational form, we say this function is our weighting function or weighted function. So that is multiplied over here. So this u is a special case where this is equal to the unknown displacement field. In general, it can be anything. Even it can be 1 also. Actually, when we are using energy method, there also we have multiplied it in this energy method when we are using this delta, as if here we have a weighting function which is 1, that we can say like that, because this is already in variational form. But this is not in a variational form. What is variational form? That much we have not discussed. This we will discuss in our variational methods lecture. So now from here what happens? This is expressed in normalized coordinate. It will become like this. Okay. Then this is normalized coordinate, and then from here what we are doing, we are integrating by parts, here this quantity. Okay. Which quantity? Here you see we have a second order derivative, right?
Yes.
Is it okay? Now, this part is say our u, okay, and say this is a derivative of du dxi,
Yes.
say this v prime. You know integration by parts.
Yes.
If this is the form, this is what we'll get.
Yes.
Okay, and then here we are multiply with u, okay, here. So u into a, that is a product of two variables, both are function of x or xi, say. Okay. E is constant, L square is constant. Okay. So that constant part is not considered here.
Yes, sir.
So if we have this u into a, it will give rise to this. Clear? So now, from here what we are getting? This is the derivative we are carrying out, right?
Yes.
u a d2u dxi2, if we carry out this integration, and this is what we are doing, integration by parts. This is the first part. uv, its domain is 0 to 1, okay, minus here we are getting a derivative of the first part, which is ua, okay, and this ua will give rise to this thing. This is what we will get from there. So this multiplied by our u prime into v. U prime into v means here we have a du dxi, okay, du dxi. This is the integral of that. This v prime is now becoming v.
Okay, sir.
So this is becoming du dxi, and this part is u into dA dxi, right?
Yes, sir.
That is considered here. And
This one is u into a, not d by d. Du a by d.
no, this is d dxi of ua. ua is a product of variables, so this is what
Yes,
it
yes.
will become,
Yes, sir.
like this. So this is what from here we will get this term as well as this term will come also. Okay, because now with this v part, it is giving rise to a du dxi, and from here we are getting another du dxi. So it is becoming this a multiplied by du dxi whole square.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is clear. Now you see here at the ends, either displacement is 0 or slope is 0. If this is the problem, here displacement is 0 for Clamped condition, slope is 0. So they are 0 as such, and then we are left with this part only,
Yes, sir.
and from here this quantity, when we will put it here, when we will put it there, something will get cancelled, dA dxi into u into du dxi, right? This part will get cancelled with this. Okay, so this so in that case, this is the final form of the equation. Now the thing is that part and this derivation should be, this would be identical. So I think here a half will come here also. Right? Is it that? So this particular equation and this equation coming from our energy functional, that should be identical, because this form is derived from force equilibrium condition, and the earlier one was directly from energy functional. They should be identical.
Okay, sir, I will check these two equations.
You check once again, they should be identical. So this is the thing, right? Whatever way we derive the equation, they should be identical. Okay, so this is the governing equation.
Yes, sir.
What next? We have to assume for this displacement field U.
Yes.
So we have assumed this thing, okay? And this is a plot, this is a MATLAB plot basically. We will see how we can form this functions. So, and these can be varied. Is it clear? Here it is shown for 7 number of functions, okay? The first 5, this is the first one, okay? Then there is second one, third one, etc., etc. Second one, third one, okay? Everyone has 0 value at the two ends. Then if we substitute it in this particular equation, this is what we are going to get. You see, we had a du dxi squared, right?
Yes.
This is what we are substituting. So we are getting a double summation here, and from this term we have a single substitution for u. So this is the single sum. This is clear?
Yes.
This is equal to 0, so this equation is written in this form. This part will give rise to some coefficient of a matrix. If we take some value of I, j, usually I equal to j here. So if this is 3, it is a 3 by 3 matrix. We have 3 unknowns, C1, C2, C3. This is becoming stiffness matrix, and the right hand side we say this is now a load vector. But this form of matrix equation is different. Okay. In previous example we had an eigenvalue form of matrix equation. But this is a simple form of matrix equation which we can solve again by matrix inversion, or many other numerical methods are there. So then some plots are there. Actually this is a plot of error. Plot of error means this is what we are getting from force balance, right? So at every point this should be 0. So if that is computed at different points, ideally they should be 0. Okay. But exactly it is not becoming 0, there is some variation. Okay. Actually these are plot of this quantity as such. Okay. This is 0 line here. Okay. Plus and minus, this side is plus 100, this is minus 100. So this is 0 line.
Yes.
Now you see here, with increased number of functions, we had 7 functions in this plot, and here we have 31 functions. So you see the improvement in result.
So what is in the gross point?
I am telling you. Now you see, to carry out this particular operation, we have to carry out this numerical integration.
Yes.
what are the schemes of numerical integration? Trapezoidal rule, this rule, that rule, Simpson's rule. One particular method is Gauss integration, Gauss-Legendre integration method. It was not covered in your numerical analysis, right? But it is there. So that integration requires some specific domain points which are not equal. Okay, all the other methods like your Simpson's 1/3 or whatever,
3/8. Simpson 3/8.
that is there, and then pure numerical integration part is also there, right? Taking an elemental strip y dx for the thing. Now trapezoidal rule is there. Those are uniform divisions of the domain. But here with Gauss point, we take certain points on this domain, and at those points we fix some weight at those points. So that way the points are known as Gauss points, and each Gauss point has a corresponding weight which is used in numerical integration. So there is a limitation. If you have 12 points, you cannot take up say more than 11. Some limitation is there, some relation is there. Okay, so that way, if we increase number of functions, we need to increase number of Gauss points also. Okay. So why it is like this? Actually, the number of function means for each of the function, the degree of the function, say it is a quadratic, then cubic, and then it will go on. The degree of the function, or say polynomial degree, it will go on increasing. So this 31 means ultimately the highest function will have a degree 30 or something. It might be 31, 32, whatever. Depends on the first function from which the generation of orthogonal set was started, right? So that is why we have to increase number of Gauss points. Okay, this is clear. So this is quite obvious that with increased number of functions, and this is a consequence of this increased number of functions, we have to take care of numerical integration also, right? So this is improving, result is improving. So this is what, let us see, this is for different types of taper. That means this was our problem. We can control this input values d and d. If they are same, okay, we are defining it by another ratio which is called aspect ratio. Some ratio is defined. The taper, you can say, taper in percentage. 1%, 2%, 3%, 0% means it is uniform. Then this is case, there is a plot of displacement field. With uniform loading, that if you make it taper, then for uniform loading, the magnitude of load at different cross section will be different. Okay? So that is why the displacement field is getting changed. Is it okay? For zero taper, that means for uniform beam, displacement field is symmetric. There is a symmetric field. Okay, then it is changing as such. And this is another case. This is for uniform loading.
Yes, sir.
These results are for point loading. 50 Newton at midpoint. So this is a case of point loading. This is stress, this is displacement plot. With 12 and 7 number of functions. What are these things? Red is one is displacement, other one is strain. So one is displacement. Here we both have two results, displacement field, and derivative of that is our strain. So these two results are here. Okay. Here we have stress and force. One is stress, other one is force. So these are some of the results. This is another result. Here loading point is shifted at 0.4. So here loading point is at 0.5. Now it has shifted to 0.4 here. So from this point we are getting tension on one side, compression on other side. Here also we are getting tension and compression on both the sides. So this is how it is changing. At 0.4 we have some loading, then this is some value here, some value here. There should be a matching all together, that is also there. So some error is there, okay, in the result.
Yes.
Now the thing is how to implement this thing in MATLAB. So that part let us see. Let us see this in our MATLAB code. Okay. So this is the bar problem. So now you see our previous example was on stress analysis, then we had a strain analysis also. So this bar analysis. So here we have used some routines for numerical integration and other things, okay. So those are available in these folders. So those are included in this path through path command. Okay. So they will be called from this code. Such functions will get invoked. So if you do not include the path name in your program, you will get some error message. Okay. So then what happens? The material properties are given in this particular file. Okay. Let us see what is there in this file. If we run this thing, okay. So these are the functions which is generated. Okay. Now this particular plot and the plot we have seen earlier, they are identical plot, but why it is different? Because this particular plot is normalized. Okay. So this is a normalized plot. Normalization is not carried out in our MATLAB code. Okay. But it is possible. Normalization means you pick up the maximum value for any function and then you divide that particular plot by the maximum value. So this will become normalized like this. So these two plots are identical. Understand? Okay. That is there. And now what happens? Where is our input? See here. This is the file bar dot text. What is given here? E value 210 into 10 to the power 9.
Yes.
Then our sigma value 350 into 10 to the power 6. This is an SI unit.
Yes.
This E1 value is for post-elastic behavior. New value is also given, but it is not read from the file. It is specified explicitly. So instead of that, we could have written new equal to, this is the read command. Actually read file will give this particular file into the variable out, okay, and from this out there is a conversion from string to numeric value, okay. This is the field starting from 2 and first 9 values. First is blank, so starting from 2 9 values, it is taking up to this. Okay, this is what we can also do. So like this, if we put this as new equal to string num, sorry, now this is the fourth line, and we have 1 to 9 is fine, right? This is first line, second line, third line, fourth line. Oh, the first one is the line number, okay. It will get 0.3 as well. Let us make it comment, and if we run this, the same thing will happen. Okay. So anyway, you understand what it is. Then some g value and k value, is it coming from here? Whatever g value, new value, they are not required actually. So in the program it is there, okay. G is computed, K is computed like this, and then this length is specified 1.2 meter, D to one end and in the other end, that is also specified 0.1 and 0.04. That means 100 millimeter and 40 millimeter, right? This is load, the number of Gauss point, number of function. This is the limit 0 to 1, limit of integration, normalized coordinate. Then this particular function, it gives the number of Gauss point and their weight. So you can control number of Gauss point, yes. 12, 24, 48, whatever. It was shown there in this plot. Yes. They have different plots, right? Here. So that way in our program we can simply give the number of Gauss point, accordingly the precision of the program will change. And that way we can change number of functions also. Here it is specified 24 and 11. So you see, this is it was 12 and 7. So if you increase this number of function, you need to increase number of Gauss point also. Some rule is there. You will get the detailing in Gauss integration routine. Everything is available in numerical recipe. There is a book, okay, on numerical methods. For practical purpose, you have to follow that particular book. Even the codes are also given there. Also, it is available only in Fortran and in C. But if you understand the thing, it would be possible to implement in any other computer code. So that is implemented in our MATLAB routine. Okay. And then this is generation of the function. Okay. This is the initial function. And then with this initial function, we are generating higher order functions. So this is again a subroutine to generate higher order functions. How many functions as specified here?
Yes.
Oh, this is clear. And then there are some more questions here. What is the logic behind this thing? What is the logic behind this function? So here the logic behind is that Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization procedure. Okay? Here the Gauss integration logic you must know. So this is not what you can do immediately. You have to do much study before implementing all these things. This is clear, right? Okay. So again, this particular method, Gram-Schmidt orthogonalization procedure, is available in that particular numerical recipe. Okay. And then this is the derivative. This is a case of numerical differentiation. So what is this routine? This is for differentiation. What it is differentiating? It is differentiating the functions. And what it is returning? The derivative of this function, which is phi d. Okay, do we require second order derivative? Here we have only first order derivatives, right? Second order derivative is not required. So it is not generated in the code. So that way you can also generate another derivative of this. We will name it as phi double d. And we will again call the same function with argument phi d now. Now you understand this thing. Okay. What next? This E by L is a factor. I think it is there. Do we have E by L anywhere? E by L is there, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is used with stiffness matrix, right? So this is a factor. What next? For I equal to, these are Gauss points. So for this Gauss point, the diameter at those points are calculated. Is clear? So this is specified at the two ends. The diameters are specified here, 0.1 and 0.4, and then we have generated some Gauss points for numerical integration. So at those points, this area is inbuilt within that integration, right? This area is there within integration. We have to multiply with area here. Within the domain, area is changing.
Yes.
So that area is calculated. Okay. Area is calculated. First diameter, from there this area. Pi by 4 d square.
Yes, sir.
This part is done. Then this is generation of stiffness matrix. Okay. So you see, this is area phi prime, phi I prime, phi j prime. It is also there like this. After substituting, area phi I prime, phi j prime. Clear? So how many terms are coming? Depends on the number of function. If we have 11, it will generate 11 by 11 matrix. Okay. And finally, we are getting the stiffness matrix. Is it okay? And what it is, this is the factor, that means E by L is stored in this factor. And this temp, this is a temporary value. It is the numerical integration of this function f. What is this function? Area into phi I, phi j, and their derivative actually. Is clear? So this is how this equation is implemented. Is it okay? Stiffness matrix is generated, and then comes the loading part. Okay. This is the loading part. And in the loading part, P is multiplied. P was initial load, it was given a value of 10,000, right?
Yes, sir.
So with this, we are getting the right hand side vector known as the load vector, or here it is right hand side vector. Okay. So what is the solution for C? What was our matrix equation? Our matrix equation was like this. This is the matrix equation. This right hand side vector we have generated, stiffness matrix we have generated. What is the solution? K inverse into this right hand side vector. So straight away it will give this vector of unknowns. So right hand side vector is derived or generated. This is vector of unknowns. What it is? Inverse of stiffness matrix and multiplication of the right hand side vector. So this is again another subroutine. This is the argument, stiffness matrix and right hand side vector. Okay, we can, the rest of the operation is done within the subroutine. Is clear? And if this C is known, this is vector of unknown. With this, what we can do? We can generate our approximate function. Our approximate function means this thing, right? W is summation of AI phi I. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is now generated. Unknowns are known. The functions phi unknown. Derivative of phi is also known. So you can find out what is W, displacement field, and its derivative also. The same thing. So this is generated for NF number of functions at ng number of Gauss point. This is complete. This completes the solution. And why epsilon x is like this? Because it is normalized thing. Du dx and du dxi, there is a L factor, right? So this is the thing, and stress is epsilon into elasticity. Now this is clear. And the maximum value of this is plotted, taken out. Max of the stress value. Okay. Actually, this strain, it is generated at each Gauss point. So from there, max value is taken out, right? And if this value is greater than yield point, then the computation is stopped. And this part is basically the precision part. Right? Here The number of execution is controlled by this counter. So only 2 number of computations are allowed here, and we are getting a load of 31. This is 310,000 Newton to cause yielding, but if it is increased, you will get a better precision, because the increment, you see this P is incremented with 10,000, P increment value is also 10,000, but then it is reduced, gradually it is reduced. So this particular value is more than the yield value, but this would be exact value if we say, let us change this as 20. You will see this value will change, but computation time will increase. You see, the value has changed. Okay. Even you go on increasing that thing, you will get refinement of the result. Is it clear? Again, with this, we increase or reduce the number of functions. Let us do one thing. Let us reduce the number of functions as 7. Where is our NF? NF is 11, let us reduce it, make it 7, okay? And then we'll increase that counter value. Because 20, let us make it 200. Let us run this. So again that value has changed. We got some more refinement in result. And here we have 7 functions. So this is how we implement this method numerically. Okay, to understand, this is much simpler than your finite element method, because we are solving the entire domain in a single code. Okay, this is clear. For each and every problem, it is possible to generate the corresponding code, computer code. But again, that is not a very easy thing, but rather simpler compared to your FEM code. Okay. So, okay, that's all. Today's class got much disturbed with that thing. Okay. So anyway, let us stop here today.